Hey guys, First Regardsman here, and today we'll be talking about the brand new upcoming class in Warhammer 40k Darktide, and I have brought on special guest Mr. E of Darktide fame to talk about this with me. How are you doing, Mr. E? Can you introduce yourself a bit and let people know what you are all about?
Yes. Hello, sloppers, slopettes. It's Mr. E. Those of you who've watched Darktide content, you've probably seen me. I get the really colorful graphics in the thumbnails. You probably recognize the voice. But yeah, I'm the Darktide guy. FTG is the Space Marine
And
guy.
the Space
But
Marine 2
expect to see
guy.
more crossovers in the future.
There's many
Um,
more.
yeah, many more. We actually are uh like friends to rivals sort of thing going on
That
there.
is
But I
true,
think we enjoy
friends.
each other's company. But yeah, we wanted to talk about the new class, as I'm certain many of you are aware, maybe less so your audience, but pretty big news, at least in the Dark Tide space. We actually have a roadmap that has informed us that there's a new class coming, and it's coming. It's going to be teased on the 11th, and then TBD when the release is. The assumption is that it's on December 2nd, but I think they're still like nailing down some stuff on that end. But yeah, we'll know exactly what the class is as far as like what its abilities and stuff are going to be teased. I don't know. Maybe it'll just be a teaser like the RBDs where it's like, hey, it is an RBDs, but no more information than that.
Now, speaking of
Kind
the
of, yeah.
RBDs, I was pretty shocked to find out we'd be getting a brand new class in Darktide, not once, but twice in a single year. I was not expecting
Yeah.
any new classes at all in this game, to be honest. But as far as the new class in Darktide is concerned, I'm curious to see what you think the state of Darktide is going to be with a brand new class. Once again, RBDs released in a very powerful state. Now, we both played that a bit in the early access when it came out, and we were like, this thing is kind of on crack, especially compared to even the Ogren at the time prior to the Veteran and Zealot reworks they did
Mhm.
recently. And I thought it was a
And
pretty
Psyker.
interesting thing. And Psyker, of course, can't forget the Psyker, even though they were kind of put down for a while. But the point is that in Darktide, having a roadmap, having two classes released in a year, I think this is a really good thing for the game. But I am worried about like the balance at times because I've seen this brought up quite a few times that Darktide is pushing more towards having all of the classes in a very powerful state, even for like Havoc 40 level content. And things like Orc Maelstrom have gotten progressively easier. Personally,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's like the biggest issue ever because I feel like Orc Maelstrom should be there for some of the more underpowered guns because, like, let's be honest,
Mhm.
you can't have everything on like the level of a plasma rifle or stuff like that because Havoc 40 is like the end game content. And if you balance everything around an end game content like Havoc 40 to that degree, it's just going to become super trivial with all builds for things like Orc Maelstrom, which is for some people it already is. But I'm curious to see what you think about that.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on this a lot. Like personally, I try to kind of incorporate the opinions of my viewers and sort of I'm like halfway between like an elitist and an everyman sort of thing. Like I can play the game pretty dang well, but I have to come at it from the perspective of like most people are not routinely clearing Havoc 40s. They can, but only with like the most powerful stuff. So when I talk about like weapons and tier lists and those sort of things, I try not to like uber put down a ton of things, but it is true that they like the way the game is being like designed right now, the very upper echelon of content is pretty much unachievable without pulling out some very, very overpowered stuff. And I think that like where I
Definitely
sit
for
on this
most
is that
players.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like you just simply aren't clearing Havoc 40 unless you're using like Shout Veteran, unless you're like absolute upper
Yeah, unless
echelon
you're like a very,
of
very top end player, for
yeah.
sure.
You have to be a complete sweat to do it without some of those like bubble and stuff. So I think that probably the most healthy thing to do for the game is to design around the Auric Maelstrom experience because that's where like things kind of get pretty crazy. Like it can be pretty hectic these days. There's kind of decent sized hordes. Sure, for players that have dipped their toes into Havoc and are very experienced at it, it feels like a walk in the park. But you have to remember that the way that Fat Shark sees their game is not that it's not intended to be something that people sink thousands upon thousands of hours into. I think that like you and I, like Space Marine and Darktide are probably similar in that vein, where I don't think the devs really designed them with the intent that people will play them for 3,000 hours.
Oh,
I
definitely
think they
not Space
designed
Marine
them.
2. Definitely not.
No, I think they designed them with the intent that people will like pick it up once every couple of months to play it for a weekend with their friends and therefore, like, that really really hard content is only there for like the most absolutely achieved of players. Most players, they'll capstone, like the peak, the pinnacle of their like accomplishment will be clearing Auric Maelstrom. So if you can have that be attainable but still difficult for like whatever build you start playing with, I think that's a good point to reach as far as like weapon balance and stuff. As far as where the class is going to come out, and like, the overall balance of the
Yeah,
game,
relative to the other classes.
yeah, it would be hard to say. Like, I would have a hard time imagining that it would be more powerful than the most powerful classes right now. I haven't yet put out my ranking the the power of the classes after this update. I've got that coming soon, so I don't want to like spoil my takes, but like the most powerful classes in the game right now are just kind of like patently absurd. Like they can 1v 1v20 like any number of elites, like, or like 1v infinity, wipe
Yeah,
entire
I
hordes.
feel like that
They can
happens an
blow up
awful
bosses
lot in
seconds.
Darktide between certain updates. You have like a couple
Yeah,
classes that really just stand
like
head and shoulders above the others. As far as a new class goes, now Arbites was one that I didn't exactly expect to come out, not only because I didn't expect them to make a new class, but also just like the Adeptus Arbites are not really a character choice. I expected like the rejects of Darktide. Now, as
yeah,
far as other class options go, I know Jeff and Joe made a video about this, talking about some like the recent like kind of fill in your guide things that they had. And what I mean by that is they had like a recent thing where you could transfer your characters over from Darktide into like a tabletop thing of some kind. But on the note of, they were talking about Tech Adepts and Skitarii. Now,
we get talked about
Skitarii,
Sister of Battle and stuff too.
there's a battle
Yeah.
as well. I feel like we're probably never going to see a Sister of Battle in
I don't. Yeah, I think
in
that's very
Darktide.
unlikely. Sorry, guys. Yeah,
Yeah, they're
I think
pretty
that's
damn
too overlap
powerful.
with Zealot. Yeah, they're very powerful canonically as well, but it's also like, first of all, it's gender locked, which I don't think they'd probably want to do, and
That's true.
then it's also like, it's just Zealot. It's just a more powerful Zealot. It's a faith powered melee fighter, right?
Yeah,
So
with a
I
Sister
just,
of Battle, you're really pushing in towards like a Space Marine
yeah,
territory at that point. They're
yeah,
about,
it's somewhere in
they're
that
not,
region.
they're not quite up there yet, but they're pretty damn close in a lot of ways. As far as a Tech Adept would go, a lot of people talk about Skitarii being like the elite of the Adeptus Mechanicus, or at least like some of their elite soldiers. Now, think having like a standard Tech Adept and things like that would make a little bit more sense for like rejects. You already have Adeptus Mechanicus on the ship. Now, as far as the role a new class could play, Arbites released as a basic like melee focused class, like Little Dog, the Cyber Mastiff they have. They do use those in the lore and like primarily shock mauls and stuff like that. But shotguns, do you think a new class would benefit from being like a more range focused, kind of like the veteran or things like that, or you think it's just like
The
to like a more melee focus?
So I actually made a video on this like a long time ago, like right after RBD's release, and it was like literally about like adding Skitarii to the game, because Skitarii is the number one thing that I want to be added to the game. I'm not necessarily certain if the signs point towards that for this one, unfortunately, but if it is added, I think it would honestly be like the best idea for them, because right now we've got what, Ogren, Zealot, and RBDs. They're all melee focused, like they're very heavily melee slanted. Then you've got Psyker, who's very heavily range slanted, and Veteran, who's most of the way, I would say like 70% range slanted. So
Yeah.
I feel like they need another range slant. But the problem with ranged weapons is like they don't really have as much identity per weapon as something with like melee, because you can have like a stabby dagger, like a light weapon with melee. You can have a two-handed weapon with melee. You can have a shield with melee. There's a lot of ways you can make melee feel different, even when it's just melee versus range. Range is always just like shooting a gun, right?
Yeah, especially in
So,
Darktide. I feel like Darktide, like
Mhm.
the standout range weapons are obviously the plasma rifle and the bolters. That's what people usually talk about, and like that's
yeah, the
one
ones that have like really fancy animations. And
oh yeah,
stuff to
just
go
like
with
a
them.
meaty sound effect to them. I think Darktide does bolters very well in the sound effect department. As
It
those are
completely
also
mods Space Marine too,
oh,
in
it
terms
definitely
of
does.
bolter
Though I will say,
representation.
in
So
they
it
did
does.
change the sound effects for the bolt pistols recently. They sound a bit better in the new upcoming patch
Okay,
on
that's
the
good.
test server, but still not close to Darktide, unfortunately. But
Yeah.
bolters and plasma, they're like two of the most popular weapons in 40k. I was hoping to find like a Melta gun in Darktide at some point, because I feel like Darktide will properly represent Meltas, because Meltas are
I
like
know.
the super
I
powerful
really
single shot weapons or arm
thought we were
piercing.
gonna get Melta. I really thought, because like they were teasing that there was gonna be a new weapon for Veteran, for a while, and like there had been data mines that there was a new weapon for veteran, and they'd been promising it for like 9
Yeah, I thought
months or
bringing one too.
something, and everyone was like, "Oh, it's Melta, it's Melta." It wasn't Melta, it was the Power Falchion, and like I think people that were data miners like knew that ahead of time that it was actually like just a melee weapon. I don't know what, like maybe like Meltas are only permitted for like certain, maybe it's too high a tech, but that's sort of the reason why I think like Skitarii would be such an excellent thing. First of all, people fucking love Adeptus
Oh, they
Mechanicus,
do.
right? Like that
Oh
would
yeah.
be so big for Fat Shark to be able to add that to the game, because like that's gonna get the game out to like a wider audience. I know a lot of people would like, people are like, oh, I want a Ratling or whatever. It's like I don't think people are like gonna shill out their
No, I
11
think
bucks or whatever for a
ratlings are
Ratling.
a little too niche, and like they're a little
and they're
too
and they're
range
like just
focused for
snipers,
Darktide.
right?
Yeah, they don't
So,
make a lot of sense.
but like a Skitarii, there's literally like, dude, if I was a dev, if I was like someone who created games and like came up with ideas for classes, I would like just like jizz myself thinking of ways to come up with like Skitarii. There's so much stuff you can draw from there. Like they have so many cool weapons, and
They
you
have
could
like
literally
we've
make it like
seen.
a ranged caster hybrid.
Oh yeah.
Um,
We've
with
seen
like tech,
the
just
homing
magic tech.
missiles with the assail on the Psyker. Psyker
Yeah.
having these assail things. So if some of the Skitarii weaponry that has homing bullets and stuff like that, that'd be pretty cool. So you actually represent it in game. I also feel like a homing weapon would actually be pretty good in Darktide. I mean, we obviously know it's true with the assail, but even like on an actual gun for like
Dude,
special targeting and stuff like that, that would be pretty
I
cool.
was uh I was reading about some of their, they have one that's like they have a pistol that's like it shoots like a
Yes.
special like irradiating round that basically puts out this radio frequency that then their future like volleys, like their salvos will like track in on. And so you could have like effectively, like if you ever got like the end mission of like Titanfall 2 where you get the smart pistol and it just like bloop, and you like line it up on dudes' heads and then all the bullets just attract to their heads. Like it would be cool. It would be very powerful. It'd be cool to like have a class that can like prio target like that. It's basically what like Veterans Executioner stance would want to be, but just have that be like a blitzer and ultimate
Yeah,
ability
things like
where you
arc
can like
rifles
launch
for like
a
a
little,
more like
yeah.
electric theme. They can also have like the Electro Priest and stuff like that. I feel like Adeptus Mechanicus makes a lot of sense as a class choice. I'm not sure if we'll actually get that in this update, but as far as like long term in Darktide, I really do think we should have some type of Adeptus Mechanicus. I know Adeptus Mechanicus 2 is coming out fairly short
Yeah.
and like pretty recently here, or upcoming. And having some kind of like Electro Priest, Adeptus Mechanicus, Skitarii, or just a Tech Adept, I think that makes a lot of sense. Now, previously, I was a little against having Skitarii in the game because I felt
Mhm.
like, the rejects, it just didn't fit their power level that much, kind of like a Sister of
But
Battle would.
it is like there have been like strides like made to kind of like justify it in the lore. So like it's been forever since we've actually advanced the lore in Darktide, but like there is this whole like thrust of like Mobian steel, right? Like we've reactivated these Mobian steel foundries, and it is lored, it's written in the books, the holy scriptures, that the Adeptus Mechanicus is interested in this world because of those resources, because Mobian steel is like a higher purity of Mobian iron and can like basically imbue stuff with like properties. There's like apparently also there's some like heretofore undisclosed like research facilities, like Mechanicus research facilities on the planet that they're like trying to that they haven't disclosed like what's in them or what the work was being done there, but perhaps it was like lost because Toma Prime is like a world that was colonized before the like the Dark Age or whatever it's called, like the like
Dark Age
where
technology,
basically,
yeah.
the Dark Age technology, yeah. And so like they lost contact with the Imperium for I can't even remember how many thousands of years it was, but like yeah, they have been somewhat recently in the timeline like reestablished that link, and so like we're basically like rediscovering like potentially there was something really powerful there, which would mean the Mechanicus would be interested in it,
Yeah, I
and
think we've seen that
it's a
represented
Forge
with
world
the
as well, like yeah. So
with the Tech
it's
Priest being the missions more. As far as the overall push for like the power scaling of the universe in Darktide, it does seem like on top of just like gameplay mechanics of the classes being more powerful, it does feel like they're just trying to move us more towards having like newer characters be stronger. Like RBDs are not like Space Marines or things like that, but they're definitely no pushovers. They are stronger like a bum reject and stuff like that. Even Ogrins are already quite strong in lore anyways. They're pretty
oh
dumb,
yeah,
but they can
Ogren
like,
really is. very strong lore
They
wise,
can
but
fist fight a space marine, no armor. I mean, the space marine probably just shoot him in the
suplex
head,
them.
but I mean, they're pretty strong. They even had Ogrins take out word bearer Terminators. It's kind of embarrassing for the Terminators, but the point is that Ogrins are quite powerful. When people talk about the power scaling in Darktide, it's more of like how is it represented rather than like being perfectly lore accurate, because
Yeah.
obviously no 40k game is perfectly lore accurate. And
I
as
mean, like
far as
psychers, right? Like, there's psychers in existence that can, like, crash void ships, like with just their mind. Like, basically, like, yeah,
that
just
is true.
like psychers can unleash horrors on entire armies, and like, yeah, psychers in game are pretty fucking powerful, but like not that powerful. So yeah, we're all scaled in terms of power. And the ultimate rule is like the rule of cool, right? So like if Fat Shark wants it to happen and Games Workshop approves it, they can get it in the game, right? They can find a way to make it work, which is like kind of what I think with RBDs too, is like, this was a thing where it's uncertain. It's like not really certain whether or not like this was Games Workshop's idea first or Fat Shark's idea first, but like at some point RBDs came up, and like it doesn't really make like the most sense that like the RBDs would just be like, hey, like we're jumping on board this inquisitorial ship now and we're like laying down the Lex from here. Like usually they're kind of like their own thing, but they wanted to make
It
it
does
work,
feel
so they
like a
made it
Games
work.
Workshop move at some point, and that's like I'm glad you
It,
brought that up, because Games Workshop, they are very on, like they're very hands-on with their IP, far more than most companies would be. I've talked to
yeah,
some
they're
like
extremely
former
hands-on.
devs on some games for 40k that have said that previously they had like pretty free reigns on the stuff, but like as time has gone on, and 40k has become bigger and bigger, Games Workshop has been more and more hands-on. They're already pretty hands-on
Mhm.
previously, at least like for especially animations like Astartes, where they basically took the guy's entire video down. It's their property, so like
God,
they
they let
will.
him make a second one though, right? There's a second
Yeah, they
one.
put him in a
That's what I saw.
basement and like had him work there to make them one more 10
People were
years later.
so mad when like nothing came out. They're like, oh shit, they fucking like bought him out and then shuttered him. Like
Yeah,
they
they
didn't
put
let
him
him
in a
make anything.
basement, had him at work
But like,
for that.
yeah, they don't exactly have a great reputation for like being kind about their IP. And from what I understand, it's like there's some IPs where like they just don't care about it, right? Like, the rejects in Darktide, I feel like Fat Shark probably has a lot more leeway with them because those are technically like mostly their original like iterations in the IP. Like they definitely draw from certain lookbooks for certain types of characters
I would say
and the
they're
outfits that they
mostly
put on.
focused on like veterans, plasma,
Yeah, but
las guns. Those are the things that they really have to
but they're
get down for sure.
generic,
Yep.
right? Like they're just like generified versions of that versus the Arbites, which is I'll bring this up here because like I feel like I need to say this every time we talk about it. One of the big things that people always bring up about the Arbites is like, how come no premium cosmetics? Fat Shark is like lazy or whatever. It's 100% got to be Games Workshop, guys,
Oh yeah.
because like Fat Shark wants to make that money. People are like, shut up and take my money, like for RBD's cosmetics. But like
Speaking of
if RBD says
cosmetics,
like no, yeah,
I'm
oh
glad you
yeah,
brought
what
that
about it?
up. Of a lot of people have a huge problem with the cosmetics in Darktide. Now, obviously, we don't have confirmation of this. I've always felt the cosmetics store and like the way it's laid out, the quills and stuff like that, is not necessarily a Fat Shark directive. It is a 10-cent
No,
directive. You can see that reflected in other
absolutely.
10-cent properties. Now, how do you feel about the classes in Darktide being a paid DLC? Now, to bring this full circle to Space Marine 2, in Q1 of next year, Space Marine 2 will be receiving its first new class as well with the Tech Marine, and Tech Marine will be a free DLC, and all DLC for the paid DLC in Space Marine 2 is
Yeah,
for cosmetic outfits. Now, I feel like the payment or like the payout of these cosmetic DLCs in Space Marine 2 is probably higher than the cosmetic purchases
absolutely.
in
Yeah.
Darktide, because Space Marine cosmetics are just so fundamental to so many
I-
Space Marine fans. But
mhm.
do you think that these class DLCs are properly priced? Do you think it's like reasonable for Fat Shark to ask for your money on top of selling you these cosmetics in game? On my personal view on this is that it does feel like 10-cent is like the major factor for Fat Shark's Aquila store, and then for the RBDs and things like that, that's like a Fat Shark thing where they make this like, okay, we're gonna sell this DLC at like a reasonable price. I think like
Yeah,
$11 is a pretty reasonable price for a DLC in Darktide. Now, the one in Space Marine 2 is free, obviously, but Space Marine 2 is a simpler game, and there's a lot more work
and
that
it's a
goes
$60
into.
game.
Yeah.
That's like, so I think like the way I see it is this: like Fat Shark is, or like Darktide is a game that's what, 4 years old? How old is this game? How old am I?
That's like
Good
3 years
lord, I think
old.
it's 4 years old, or like yeah, almost. We're pushing four, right? Pushing three.
Pushing 3, I think. Yeah.
It came out like late, yeah. So we're pushing 3 years old. So like the game isn't like making any more money off of initial sales. Like I think it's probably pretty rare that people are buying the game for full price. Like let's actually just check right now. Pull up the store page. Yeah, you can get Darktide. It's $40 flat price, but it's on sale. Like seems
Yeah,
like
it's on
half the
sale all the
time,
time.
like
Pretty much every major
60%
update.
off, 40% off, or whatever. So like they're not making too much money off of initial sales anymore, and it's not as much upfront. And I think like what you said is definitely true. There's probably a lot less throughput of people who pick up the game and then go and like spend a bunch on the cosmetic store versus what there is in Space Marine 2. Because yeah, like you said, like making your Space Marines have the right colors and represent the
It's
right
very, very important for
yeah,
Space Marines,
like it's
especially.
incredibly integral. It's integral to the experience. Like you need to make them represent like the right
I would go as far to say that
action
like
order.
cosmetics are fundamental to 40k, but
For
Space Marines are like the
Space
fundamental.
Marines, it is.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I would say for like all of 40k, 'cause that's how a lot of people choose their armies and their miniatures. But for Space Marines especially, like half these guys, their chapter differences are color coded, not just armor.
Yes.
So it's like
But
you
like
really do need that
the
DLC. Yeah.
yeah, the difference in, and they're very smart about that, right? The fact that they know that like, people want to play as certain chapters, and they make those chapters like you got to pay to have those colors to be those chapters. And like, fair play, right? But for Darktide, the cosmetics, they don't really represent anything that people usually have like some strong allegiance to, where they're like, oh, I had to buy that. It's just like, oh, if that looks cool and you want to drip your dude out, cool. So it's not like that pressing for
Yeah,
people,
there's
and
nothing
like
that
these
feels like,
aren't
I think
previously
the
established
biggest
things.
example of a pressing purchase in Darktide that felt like proper FOMO to me was like the Kriegsman helmets and stuff like that. Like it's once again it's veterans, because veterans are like the most popular part of Darktide's like character selection in my opinion, just because veterans are, the guardsmen. The guardsmen in 40k are huge. They're up there with like
Yeah,
Space Marines as like a playable faction people love. And
I think
having Kriegsmen, having Steel
Krieg.
Legion
Yeah,
and
that's
stuff
what I was
like
gonna
that,
say.
yeah, you kind of those
Krieg
definitely feel
and
pretty
that sort of stuff.
like people want those for sure. But
It's obligated to have that in the game.
as far as like Ogre DLCs go for like having a like I don't know, a faceplate on your guy, I don't think we care too much about
Yeah, I
that.
don't think there's anybody who's like an Ogren player who's like, oh, I need my Ogren to be. I can't think of any. I mean, I don't really know a whole lot about like Ogrens in lore outside of Darktide, but like I can't think of any like Ogren like factions or anything that is recognizable where you're like there's a certain Ogren cosmetic that everyone has to get.
No.
So it just seems like whatever's cool sells. But as far as like the classes themselves, it makes sense to me that Space Marine 2 would be able to offer that up for free. I think that I don't want to like put down Saber and their work. I'm certain it's a lot of work to make Space Marine or Tech Marine, but like they are voicing it, but that's one voice, and they've got what 6 talents, and plus the like how many weapons do you think it's going to come with? Like 2 or
I think it's
3
data
source
mined to have
weapons?
2, so it's definitely gonna have less.
Yeah,
It's like
it's
yeah,
like 2
it's more of a
weapons.
it's also releasing alongside a new operation, so that's gonna be part of the update. I
Yeah,
feel like as far as a class DLC purchase goes, I think it's pretty reasonable for Darktide to sell
yeah,
you a class DLC.
because and I think I haven't seen a whole lot of people who are like really upset about it, because like you think about it, and it's 6 different voice acting like jobs to get these things made, because you've got 3 different personalities, and you've got male and female, and then of course you've got what RB's had like 4 exclusive weapons, and then like they have like the whole talent tree, right? It feels like it's just a more complex thing to put together. Like I don't want to like say that I don't know
No,
the
you
first thing
can.
about
So
like
you can.
yeah,
Skill
but like it
trees in
just
Space Marine 2
skill
are
trees
very
Space Marine 2 is
simple.
definitely way easier to put together. Not
Uh,
saying that the Dark Tide's skill trees are by
no, it's
any
okay.
means
You can shit. You
perfect,
can
but
shit on Saber skill trees. We do it all the time here.
yeah,
The point is that
yeah,
the
it's Darktide
DLCs
1.0 skill
in
tree.
Darktide, like Darktide is not Darktide 1.0 skill trees were a nightmare. I think that's a great thing to bring up. Like the skill trees especially take a lot of thought for them to put in
Yeah,
to actually create these new
that's
classes.
a lot of work. It really is a lot of work. And then just like it's $12 like for this, and I feel like $12 is in the current age of gaming and like microtransactions that we live in. That's actually quite a bit of value for $12. I feel like Like I've
Yeah, I
bought
don't think it's an unreasonable
skins in
price
Path
at
of
all.
Exile that are twice that expensive for just the chest.
Oh yeah, I've seen
Like
people like
it's
thousands of
stupid.
dollars in League skins. I would say like
Yeah, like
paid DLC these days is honestly, like I mean this game has MTX obviously with the in Darktide, but having a paid DLC for like gameplay stuff is pretty
yeah.
standard. Now, honestly, it's pretty nice at this point compared to like what a
And
lot of companies
they
are doing.
release all the maps and stuff for free. I think that the way to look at it, if you have played Vermintide, I know a lot of people made this comparison to Vermintide 2, where the classes were, I think they were $4 for the base class, and then you could get the premium package for like 11 or something, and you would get like extra skins and stuff. But the classes in that were they had like Space Marine trees, right? They had like 6 talents to choose from, and they had one personality that you were adding.
Yeah,
This is triple that, so it makes sense that it'd be 12. I just and it like what the deluxe edition is like an extra $7 for like
yeah,
$19
for
if you
your
want to get the deluxe
special
edition. But that's like
outfits.
you get everything. You don't miss out on any power. There's no like pay to win in terms of that extra $7 if you really want to get it. So
That
I
is
don't
true.
I don't think too many people had too big a problem with the $12 thing. I definitely know a lot of people that have a problem with the store. If you want to hit back on
Oh
that,
yeah,
because
if we
I
want to talk about the, I mean, I
100%
feel like that's a better
agree that
for
it's a 10-cent thing.
another video that we could probably
Maybe,
talk about at
yeah.
some point
Rant,
about
rant
like
about
just
store.
the MTX and gaming in general currently is pretty bad. I mean, I've always been fine with DLC in games because I grew up on purchasing DLCs for like Oblivion and stuff like that. I never felt like I was being
You got the
robbed for
horse
like
armor? I got the horse armor too.
expansions
My
and so yeah,
Xbox points.
that was the worst, the most egregious thing at the time. These days, horse armor is just standard in games. I think that's actually a great thing to talk about at some point in the future, just like Aquila stores and just like how these companies are doing this. But as far as like tangents go, we've gone on quite a tangent on the Aquila store in general, this and some of the DLCs. But thank you for coming on and talking
Yeah.
about not the tech marine, the new class in Darktide, what could potentially be what the state of Darktide is for balance upon new classes, and if we're going to be having a different type of tech adept in the game. Do you have any closing thoughts on this?
Um, no, I mean, I really hope it is Tech Adept, or at least I hope we get one at some point, because it's absolutely my favorite option. I know it's a lot of people's out there, and I also know Fat Shark is keenly aware that everybody really wants the
They
Tech
want the
Adept, so
Adeptus
we'll see if they pay
Mechanicus.
off.
All right,
Yeah.
guys, if you're this late in the video, thank you for watching. You guys should check out Mr. E and subscribe to him for all that juicy Darktide content. If you like content like this, subscribe to me. And as always, thank you for watching. Take it easy. Bye.
Bye, guys.